from my brain, money from my brain, dog, money from my brain, money from my brain.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into another episode. This week it's a bit different. I actually have with me here a survivor of human trafficking in Jamaica, and I've been wanting to do this video for months now, and I'm finally granted with the opportunity, and I just want to thank her for coming out and for us to basically show this story. Just to tell you, if you're uncomfortable at any point, you can just let me know if you want to take a break or if you want to completely stop recording. I have no problem, right? It's all up to you. So I'm just going to allow her to tell her story, and we'll just ask some questions about the different aspects of the story. I'm just going to let you go ahead, share with us whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay. Hello everyone. I am a survivor of human trafficking, which took place when I was a teenager. So I had this best friend, and she told me she was pregnant, and at the time we were like 15 years old, and her father wouldn't allow that, so she asked me to pick up some cash for her to go to the doctor, and I left school and I met the person who was in right. When I was going to the person, I realized that the vehicle was driving to somewhere lonely, which I wasn't too aware of what they were up to, so I followed the vehicle. And when I went there, the person just put a rag over my nose, and that was it. I didn't remember anything. I just woke up with my hands behind me, and I was in a dark room, and when I screamed, I heard other persons screaming as well. And
It's alright.
it's just hard.
It's okay.
To talk about. But there were other persons in the room. And then after we screamed out, this guy came, turned on the lights, and I saw 4 other persons. One person was beaten very badly, and
When you say 4 other persons, you mean 4 other women?
4 other women.
Okay. Your
young
age,
women.
young, you figure they were
Years.
teenagers?
They were
or
young.
like, okay.
Right. So there was this other girl, she was beaten very badly, and she was just laying there. She wasn't speaking or anything. She was just looking traumatized.
So at that moment, when you saw that, did you kind of figure out what was happening?
Right.
Okay.
So I was just praying in my head that I just get away safely. I had my cell phone at the time, and they took the cell phone from me because it was in my bag. And I don't know what they did to the phone, but I wasn't able to receive any phone calls or anything. And I was told that I was going to be given another name, different date of birth and everything. So
You were still in school uniform. You said you
Right,
left school,
I
you
was
were in
in
school
school
uniform
uniform.
and everything. So they would have known that,
Right.
you're a schoolgirl, you're a teenager. Alright, so they told you that you would get like, new name,
Right.
basically a new form of identification. And then what happened?
I was there for three days and 2 nights. We weren't fed anything except water and cane, and they didn't loose your hands or anything. Like, they threw it at you, so anything you catch in your mouth, you just had to consume that. So one of the guys called my father and told him that if he wanted to get me back, that he had to pay $1 million. And I'm not sure what happened after, but the day after they were supposed to transport us to St. Thomas, because I'm always listening. And there was this truck outside waiting on us, so we had to carry things to the truck. Like, I don't know what was in the boxes, but we had to carry them, like the stronger ones,
Yeah.
2 of us. And when I was coming out, I didn't know the community, and I realized that houses were close by. I saw 3 women outside talking. So I was trying to figure out a way to get away, but I didn't want to run because I had chains on my foot. I didn't want to run. I didn't want it to look suspicious because I don't know if they would shoot me or what. So while I was going back to the house to carry out the other boxes, I was trying to signal the ladies with my eyes because they were looking at us. I was trying to signal to them that I was in danger. And they were still talking. Somehow I was praying to God that they understand. And
So it wasn't a case where they were able to like see the chains?
no,
or-
they couldn't see the
So
chains.
your hands were freed?
Right.
Hands were freed, but
They
your-
wanted
your
it to
feet
look,
weren't.
because
Okay.
remember there were houses around, so they didn't want it to look forced or anything. So when I was coming outside with the other boxes, about 8 different to and from.
Yeah.
When I was coming back outside, 2 guys, they came out with a gun. And when I saw the gun, I started to run with the chain on my leg. And then the other girl, she ran behind me. So I ran over to the ladies, and that's how I got away at first. And they started to question me and ask me questions. Where was I from? Only to find out I was in Westmoreland.
You ran over to the ladies in the community and you started telling them. You said that someone else ran behind you as well.
Yes, the other
right?
female that-
So the guys with the gun at that point, they ran in the vehicle.
No, the persons that had us, I don't think they had a weapon with them at the time. Because when the 2 guys ran after them, they ran and they left the bus right there.
So you mentioned that 2 guys came out with a gun from out the house? Where?
From behind the house at which the ladies were.
Oh.
Right. So it's like they said something to them, or I don't know. I'm not sure what happened because I was just on my way outside.
So you don't know if the 2 guys with the gun were with the persons who
No,
took you?
they were not. They were in what should I say? They were living with the ladies or something.
Also, these are like licensed firearm
I
holders,
don't think so.
criminals?
I think so.
Okay. So basically, the guys who took you, maybe them dissed them and they came out with the gun. Is that something?
No, I think it was a signal. Probably the lady told them something. Because,
Okay.
because each time I come out and I was going back, I was trying to signal to them with my eyes.
So one of the ladies picked up that something was
Right,
wrong, maybe
right,
alerted the
right.
persons in the house and they came. What type of community was it though? Was it like, nice neighborhood, upscale community?
It was like ghetto.
Okay, alright.
So the guys, they ran off, and the police, they were summoned and everything. And
So what about the other ladies that were there, the other young ladies?
so the police, they came by and they took us to a police station, and they actually called my parents. I gave them the contacts and they called them and told them how to get there and stuff. One of the girls, she ended up died though. The other one that
Was badly beaten.
right, and everyone there. I think the eldest was 19 years old.
Oh.
Right,
So she died after, I would have imagined
she
that
died in the house.
she died when you guys were moving out
Right.
the stuff.
She died.
So when did you realize that she was dead? Before you started moving the stuff?
No, when the police came to pick us up.
Wow. Did you ever find out, who she was, her age, or anything like that? No?
They weren't telling me anything.
So during the time that you were missing, because it was like a missing persons report filed?
Right. I thought they said I was on TVJ. The ladies said that because they could tell me my name and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. So at one point they were upset because they were saying I was bad.
Yeah, which is something that Jamaicans they love say, oh, you know, girl picnic bad, so you know, them take man, them run away, and then they don't see that these older men they prey on young girls and they love to fill their head with things like saying things along the line that, you know, oh, you're so mature for a young girl, and so when in reality it's not that you're not mature, you know, you're just naive. And then he's filling your head with things that you'd like to hear as a young woman, you know, becoming a lady, you know, you want to hear those things, right? So this whole thing about, you know, young girls being bad and everything, I love to say that kids are impressionable. And when you're a teenager with your hormones raging, right? You really and truly, you need the right influences around you, right? And even with the right influences, I mean, there's nothing to stop you from exploring. If you're curious, right? But somewhere along the lines, like, you should have the proper guidance, right? What has the transition been like for you, right? So you're rescued. Your parents came for you. I can only imagine that you were happy to see them.
At one point I thought I was dead and it was just afterlife.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Alright, so your parents took you back home.
But before all that, I had to went to the hospital to do checks and stuff.
You weren't sexually abused or
Not
anything?
yet.
Okay.
But I think that
It was going to lead to that.
Because the other girl that was there before me, she went to various parishes. They had her going around, like, making money off her and stuff like that.
Okay. So prostitution, anything along the lines of like drug use? You
I
picked
think
up
so.
Okay.
Yes.
Drugs like ecstasy. Well, they obviously knocked you out with something, but are you aware of like the types of drugs that they had involved in?
Probably
in
something
this?
to make you be vulnerable towards whoever is.
So maybe along the lines of like ecstasy. Okay. All right. So you went through the checks at the hospital. You're back home with your parents now. What has it been like?
It was hard. It was really hard. I didn't want to go to school. Like, I didn't even want to shower anything.
So what happened to that so-called friend that told you?
Well, we went to the court. Justice was served. She was at the juvenile, and then they transferred her to a prison.
How old was she?
She was 16 at the time when it happened.
Same school?
Yes. She was like a year older than me.
Okay. So is she currently behind bars? She's still?
I think this year she was supposed to come out sometime this year.
How many years would that have been? No.
I think everybody gets like 10 years or more.
10 years. 10
Yes.
years.
So she'd probably be coming out this year or this year.
Have you thought about like reaching out to her? What was it like, you know, being in the courtroom? Did you get to see her while the trial was?
Yes.
What was it like? How did you feel? Looking at her, I would have imagined that, you know, the feeling of betrayal and anger. Have you been able to move past that?
And up to that point, I still loved her as a friend until she said it was just jealousy.
Jealousy because of?
She said everybody always having a bond with me and stuff like that.
So you were sociable?
Right.
Okay.
She met the guy on Facebook and she knew the guy was about that. So I was like the third victim that she introduced to him.
So the third victim separate from the other women that were in the room.
Right.
So do you know like what happened to the other two before you? Were there persons from your school?
I'm not sure. I wasn't given much
information about that. Seeing that, you know, she'll be getting out, you suppose this year, are you planning to reach out to her, anything, or are you okay with just not having any form of contact, communication, or anything with her?
I don't wish to see or speak to her.
Okay.
Because that took me like 5 years to get over everything. When
So
I
you-
remember everything,
Mhm.
right?
So you've forgiven her?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm
Have
fast
you
as
been
well.
through like counseling or therapy?
Yes.
Okay, still going through counseling and therapy? No? Alright. You moved past, returning to school. You graduated. What's life like now in terms of, hypervigilance? So if you're on the street, right? Personally for me, if I'm on the street and a car slow down, like I'm not me and everything, but run. That's all that goes through my mind. Run, not me, girl, run, right? So, being that you went through an experience like this, like you drop your guard, how are you? What are you like on the street?
Alright, I don't really take public transportation as well. Since recently, I've been doing that, but for example, what you just said with the cars going down, that's one thing. Panic, and then I start moving faster or something. I don't really walk with my phone in my hand. I try to be vigilant and everything. If people stare at me too long, I feel like they want to hurt me. Especially if you're looking at me and you're on the phone or anything, I feel threatened.
Okay.
So and I've been suffering with anger issues because of that.
Okay. And you mentioned that you went through counseling. This was counseling provided by the state resources?
Yes, it's
Okay. Have you considered seeking counseling on your own, being that you still trauma and all, and you're still having anger issues? Have you considered getting counseling for yourself?
Sometimes.
I must ask, because a lot of times when young girls go missing in Jamaica, the first thing you hear is a man. Them run away gone with man, right? And for me, knowing what I know, over the years of just watching documentaries and just, reading articles and everything, inform myself, working closely with, teenage girls who have been abused, right? It doesn't come to my mind at all, right? Because you really realize that these young girls, they are victims in every sense. In every sense, they are victims here, right? So when I see young girls go missing, I fear that it's human trafficking, whether for sex, for labor, or for organs, right? So being that you went through that experience, were you satisfied with like the state resources that were provided? So you mentioned that you got counseling. How long did that last for?
Well, up to the point where I started improving. I just stopped.
Oh, so you stopped going into the end. You stopped going.
Because it keeps bringing back trauma and everything.
Okay.
Most of the times I didn't want to talk about it. I feel like when I shut down, it's much better.
Okay. So even with the court case, right, the trial, were you satisfied with the outcome? You mentioned that they got like 10 years. Were you satisfied? Do you think justice was truly served for you and the other girls?
I think so.
You think so? You're satisfied with 10 years? Okay. You mentioned that you were satisfied with the state resources that were provided. Do you think there is anything additional that the state, and I say the state, SISOCA, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Child Development Agency, all those state resources, right? Do you think there are any additional things, additional programs that can be implemented to ensure that, we have a reduction in the amount of human trafficking cases in the country? Because a lot of persons think it's just a one-off thing, but it's really and truly not. Like, we lose young girls to these predators. So do you think there are any things any programs, anything at all that comes to your mind that the state can improve on to help, if it's even with transitioning back into society?
Well, It depends on the trauma the person faces. Because you know, some persons wouldn't like to talk about it. When you talk to them, like most of the times, it's even worse because of the questions they ask me and stuff like that. So,
when you say questions, is it the way how they phrase the question, making it seem as if it was your fault?
right.
Yeah, I've heard of instances like that where victims are afraid of actually
Because
speaking
one
to.
thing they were saying, I live in to go all the way to should have went home and all that.
But
So,
I'm from that area as well, and I mean it's the norm for you, because if you live a certain part, you go to school a certain part. It's a norm for you to be back and forth those like 3 major towns in that area. So for them to say something like that, then to me it comes off as absurd. But I know it's the reality, because you're not the first person to open up about something like this. It's always along the lines of how they're questioned about the ordeals that they've been through, and it always brings a form of like a sense of shame on them, and it's as if you put yourself out to this. So instances like those, I wish, personally, I don't know if you'd agree, but I wish the agents who deal with cases like these, involving children, I wish they were better trained.
that's true.
And I don't even know if training alone, like lack of empathy, lack of sympathy, and I would have imagined that, if you're going to work in that field, then you would be knowledgeable about certain things, how
It should
to,
be a passion.
yes, how to handle certain things. So numerous times I keep hearing victims, they shut down because of how they're questioned. Right? How are you now in terms of like, friendships? I should ask, because to know that betrayal came from someone that you would have considered a friend, right? That level of trauma, it must have, well, I assume it has an effect on your everyday life.
Trust me, it does. Because if you realize, even when you text me,
Yes.
I'm bad at texting, I'm bad at communicating because of this. And I haven't had any friends until I started working at my current
Job.
workplace, right? So they're like family to me and stuff. I haven't had any friends because of that.
Being in your position now as a survivor of this ordeal, right? How you got into this, of some girls who they get into this because they maybe see an ad in the paper to do massage and then they fall for these ads, and I really wish that these newspaper would do some form of vetting. I don't know what can be put in place when it comes on to publishing these job ads, right? Because you have a lot of them, and these are how young girls get trapped, right? You mentioned that they were planning to send you to St. Thomas. I know that's what they usually do. They take you from one parish and they keep most of the time. So if they take you from Kingston, they send you to some parish or country, and if they take you from country, they send you to Kingston, right? So that you don't know anyone there. And sometimes they give you the freedom to actually like go back home to your family, but by that time, they have already, convinced you through various methods to continue doing this. You mentioned that the girl that was badly beaten, I'm so sorry to hear that she actually lost her life, right?
I think she was drugged because of who she was looking and everything. She was drugged.
See?
So
I really hope that family got closure to her death. I mean, it's a really gruesome way to lose your loved one, and at such an early age, right? So, you mentioned that you don't know her identity, but at the same time, I know, based on what I'm sensing, I know you feel, I know her death affected you.
it did.
Yeah. What would you be your advice to like young girls? I mean, like I said earlier, your story didn't take the road where you went for a job and got trapped, so you could tell them like look out for these ads. You were set up by a friend out of just jealousy, right? So, what is it that you know, you would share with young girls now on how to be careful?
Okay, so first thing, meeting someone on the internet, that's very risky. That's one thing. And trusting friends is another thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your friend, but ask questions, probe before you do something, before you decide to do something they ask you to do.
You want us to take a break?
Part, I didn't remember to say the part where my phone was, I don't know what they did to my phone, but it was handed back to me. I wasn't able to make any calls or anything, but I could record them, so I did that just in case.
Oh, so and you use that in court?
Right, so I was able to play it back to the police, and
that was a really smart move.
Right.
That was a really smart
So
move.
that's how they actually get to catch the guys, because remember they ran off, and one thing they were always talking about where they would meet up. So they would meet up at a parish library. That's where they would prey on young girls.
Oh.
So
And
that was
the
where
parish
they
library
caught
in
them.
St. Thomas?
No, that was in Westmoreland.
Okay.
So on my way home, after I did my checks, my doctor checks and everything, on my way home I saw two of them outside the library at the time, thank God. And I told my father, and we turned back and we got the police and they went for them.
Oh, so alright, so when they had you, it was like how many men were there?
6 of them.
6 of them. Were there like any older women there or anything? Just 6 men?
Just 6 men.
Okay. I want to thank you. Trust me for actually deciding to share your story with me. I know you were skeptical about meeting up with me and so, and then you know the location and everything, right? Thank you for giving me the chance to present your story to on my platform, right? Thanks again for tuning in.
Money for my brain, money for my brain, dog, money for my brain.